Hello, friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is delivering the drinks, streamlining beverage transportation with my friend Kristina Bernarducci. How's it going, Kristina?
Going well. Thank you, Joe.
So, Kristina, we blabbed way too long before we hit the record button. So, Kristina, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Sure thing. My name is Kristina Bernarducci, and I am calling from sunny New Jersey today. And the company I work with is Bettaway. We are supply chain services. So we have our own trucks, we have our own 3PL, we have warehousing, and a pallet management department.
Yep. And you guys, this is why one of the reasons we talked so long before we hit the record button. You guys are co-located with Arizona Iced Tea and Plastipack. Is it Plastipack that makes their bottles?
Sure is.
And so you guys do all the inbound for them, or the inbound, which is getting all those goods into the facility, and then you do the transportation out to all the DCs.
We sure do.
That is soup to nuts.
I'm telling you.
So I'm excited to get into that. But one of the reasons we're talking today is we were introduced by the fine folks over at Wreaths across America. I want to talk about them also. But first, let's talk a little bit more about Bettaway. And so Bettaway, by the way, is spelled Bettaway. Kristina's got on her shirt. So if anyone watching a video can see that. You guys don't do just beverages, though. That is just the area you're working in, what we're going to talk about today. But Bettaway has lots of other businesses. Talk about that for a minute.
Sure thing. Beverages is our niche because our founder, Tony Vaccaro, started as a soda bottler in Brooklyn way back in 1960. And in 1981, he went from manufacturing into distribution and started a small fleet. So we were moving beverages to the likes of Snapple, was one of our biggest customers, and they got bought out many different times. And he sat there and he was looking at a billboard and he saw a very familiar name, Don Voltaggio. And he's the owner of Arizona Iced Tea. He called him up and he said, "Tony, I need you. We're doing something big out of Brooklyn." So what started out of New York, New Jersey, spread like wildfire with those iconic 99-cent cans, which are still 99 cents to this day. And he said, "You're going to need some more trucks." So we were probably one of the first unofficial 3PLs back then, where you were calling in favors from everyone, and it spread like wildfire. And now you look 40 years later, we're on site at their largest production facility in the country.
Yep. You do not have to be of Italian descent to work there?
No, you don't.
I just wanted to clarify because it seemed as if that was a trend that was happening over there. It's interesting because when I think about the beverage business, I know there's a lot of the bottling, and I know anytime I've read articles about bottling or talked to people on my podcast, somebody has to mix the stuff, obviously, and that's what they're doing over at Arizona Iced Tea. But after you get the right mixture, I'm sure it's exacting, you can't screw it up. It all has to taste the same. But the real hard part of that business, I think, is the getting it to the shelves.
Absolutely. And what a fight for shelf space that there is with so many beverage companies. It used to just be the big boys. And now we were talking before we hit play about the little boutique beverage companies, and you're seeing so many more choices now. Being prevalent in the stores is always a big challenge, but getting it to there, that's our job.
I think when you look at, we'll talk, I know you guys work with Coke and Pepsi, and these are CPG companies, and they're always buying new brands, anything that's organic, anything that's premium, anything that's a little different. So when you go to this grocery store and you go down that beverage aisle, which is always a whole aisle now, you go, "Oh, here's Coke, here's Pepsi, but what you don't realize is that Coke probably owns half that aisle, and Pepsi owns probably another half of that aisle, maybe Arizona Tea." And it's funny because we never know who owns these brands anymore because the distribution is so important. So if you and I ran a small beverage business and at some point a big beverage company comes and says, "We'll give you global distribution," you're like, "Oh, yeah, we might make a deal here." So anyway, let's talk a little bit about Wreaths. So, how did you guys get involved with Wreaths across America? First off, tell us about the mission of Wreaths across America and how you're involved with them.
Oh, so we have about 150 trucks, 900 dry vans. And I said, what better organization to be a part of than Wreaths Across America? Let's do it. Let's take a truckload of wreaths from Maine, deliver it. And I tried for 3 years to get involved, and I just didn't have the right contact. And then the universe put Courtney George in my path. And
Courtney is fantastic.
She is a force to be reckoned with. And I told her, what we were looking for. We're local, we're New Jersey, and can we be one of your providers? And that year she didn't have anything coming straight to New Jersey. And so she said, I have a load going to Sarasota, Florida. What's better than Florida? Southern Florida on the Gulf in December. So I said, we'll take it. And that's where it started. And then this past year we had New Jersey. So it's a wonderful mission to remember, honor, and teach.
And that mission is to put every December, Wreaths Across America puts wreaths on veterans' graves across the United States. I don't have the numbers, maybe you do, but it's an enormous logistics problem. And so what's happened over time is thousands of trucking companies and transportation companies and logistics companies, brokerages, anybody related to logistics and supply chain transportation has gotten behind this. And I told you while we were talking, I think this is one of those organizations that you start there to help to do the right thing and be charitable, but then you bump into all sorts of customers, competitors, and opportunities.
Sure thing.
Yeah, it is very much a transportation and logistics charity. And I always say, if you're going to get involved with a charity, you might as well get involved with one that we understand. And from what I've heard from Wreaths Across America, and I have talked to drivers on the podcast, drivers absolutely love this opportunity to move those wreaths. A lot of drivers are veterans. I think it's the highest percentage of veterans of any industry are drivers, and they love doing it. And who wouldn't?
I agree. And for both journeys that we took so far, I was in the passenger seat. I was co-pilot. Our vice president, Igor Katzman, he does Toys for Tots. He does all different charity organizations. And when I asked him, hey, is this something we can do? He talked to John Vaccaro and Laura Vaccaro, our owners, and they were like, absolutely. And so he drove and I rode shotgun, and we brought a truckload of wreaths down to Sarasota. And it was the first year in history, of course, with our luck, we're excited to go to Florida, that there was a tropical storm coming. And the coordinator at that cemetery, it's a huge cemetery, it's gorgeous. And she said, this is the first time I have to do this, but can you bring them in on Friday? The plan was a whole day on Saturday. All the trucks meet up in a Walmart parking lot and they get the police escort, and you come in and to be able to unload and help lay the wreaths. And she said, I'm afraid we may have tornadoes coming in. We brought it in the day before. It was so sad. I cried all morning, but we got a chance to just walk around the cemetery and to read the tombstones and to see the memorial. And it was beautiful. And I said, we did what we came to do. Everybody's got their wreaths, and we got out of Dodge really quick. And this year we were able to actually place the wreaths in New Jersey. We had a 6-stop delivery, and it was the smallest stop. She literally had 30 boxes, and she said, can you bring your truck on site? So we have our truck. It's wrapped for Wreaths Across America. It's really beautiful. Little small road in Hightstown, New Jersey. And we backed in there, and they probably had 100 volunteers, and they were so thankful and just taking pictures in front of the truck. And it's a beautiful thing.
Yep. I met Courtney George at the Transportation Marketing and Sales Association, TMSA. I met her. They're having their conference here in June down in Austin. I met not last year, which was in New Orleans. I met the year before in Savannah. Yeah. And so as soon as she started talking to me about it, I was like, oh, this is cool. But I had heard about Wreaths Across America. I just didn't recognize to the extent that it was a charity that so many logistics and transportation companies were in. And it makes sense now that I understand it. So all those wreaths come from what, Maine?
Yeah, Columbia Falls, Maine. When I looked at the map, I realized how close we were to Nova Scotia. What a trip that was. So this year we actually took the trip from Jersey to Maine. And then to our luck again, snow was coming in. So we had to hightail it out of there early the next morning and come back down to Jersey.
So anyway, I'll put some links in the show notes. Anyone who wants to get involved, Wreaths Across America, they're always looking for trucking companies or brokerages who might want to sponsor it. Anybody in the logistics and transportation space, by the way, when you get over there, this isn't the reason you do it. It's the who's who of our business are involved in this. So it's a good place to meet people, but it's such a great charity. I should also mention Wreaths Across America has a radio station that's on the internet. And I know they carry my podcast and a few other logistics podcasts. I don't know which ones, but I think maybe Trey Griggs' podcast is over there. Anyway, great opportunity to get involved and help. And it is really a big morale booster for the companies that are involved and the families that are involved. There's a lot of Gold Star families who lost family members who are just obviously very grateful for the remembrance. One more time, what is their motto there?
Remember, honor, and teach.
Very nice. We'll touch on that one more time at the end. So tell us a little bit about you, Kristina. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined the mothership Bettaway.
I grew up in Jersey, born and raised here in central New Jersey, which a lot of people think don't exist, but it does. I lived here my whole life. I did about a year and a half of college, and then I said, this isn't for me. And you get your first full-time job and that full-time paycheck, and you think you're rich because you don't have to pay any of the bills living under mom and dad's roof. So I went into the full-time space. I ended up in pallets, and the most unglamorous commodity, but so important because pallets move the world. Everything that you get is on a pallet. So I worked for a family-owned pallet company for about 15 years. The owner passed away and the company dissolved itself. And a friend of my sister said to me, I never knew about pallets until you. And I deliver lunch to this company called Bettaway. They're hiring in their pallet department. So I came here, I interviewed, great interview, 2 hours, never heard back from them again. 2 months, I get the thank you, but whatever. Somehow my resume ended up on Monster and I got stuck in the scrapyard world for a little bit, 10 months to be exact. And I saw Bettaway put up a posting for logistics. And I called, HR said, I was looking for your resume. Come on in. I want you to meet Mr. Tice. And I came in for a quick 15-minute interview and I haven't looked back since. It's a great company, family owned, 3 generations at one point before Tony passed away. It was Tony, it was his son and daughter, and then nieces and nephews here as well. It's a great company.
I love it. I love it. And so you've been there 12 years, and obviously you must like it because in this business, 12 years is 40 years a generation ago.
Sure thing.
So anyway, let's talk a little bit about the beverage business. So again, you guys are co-located with one of your customers, which is Arizona Iced Tea. And not only are you doing the inbound for them, you're obviously doing the outbound, and all the bottles, the bottle maker is Plastipack.
Yep. They're right here on site, blowing bottles. They're coming right out onto the wall and right into line 1. The gallons are getting filled. They're getting packaged, getting palletized, and put on one of our trucks.
There's a Plastipack by my house too, so they must be a big company. Anyway, I want to first talk about some of the challenges. Then I want to walk through this, kind of the process that you guys are going through. When we talk about beverages, we'll talk about the outbound first. Where are you delivering this Arizona Iced Tea to? We'll use them as an example.
Sure. We do stock transfers. We go down. So we are supplementing the supply down in the Southeast in Lakeland, Florida. We're going down to Texas, and we are shipping via intermodal all the way across the country to Buena Park, Southern California. We make just under 50% of all of the tea is originating in this building. So we found a cost-effective way to ship via rail to feed the other regions.
So you must need, if you're going to use rail intermodal, you got to have the high volume. So when you're talking about intermodal, are you do you have to drive it to a railhead in Jersey?
Yeah, so we have drayage companies that bring it right to the railhead, and then it gets shipped cross country. Besides the stock transfers, we go into different DCs, and then the big box stores such as your Walmarts, your Costco's, your Dollar Trees, we deliver there as well. Mostly full truckloads.
So when you're delivering to the big box guys, obviously you have to worry about the on time and in full, very exacting schedules, very exacting KPIs. You either are doing it right or you are not doing it.
Oh, that is the truth.
CPGs get punished very badly if they are not doing it right. And I say this all the time. Anytime somebody says, oh, we got fined for an OTIF not being in full or on time, you got charged $1,500, $2,500. And I was like, that is the small part of the price, because the bigger part of the price is your customer's unhappy with you. And the worst part of it is you're not making money as the CPG, and the retailer's not making money. And so when somebody says they got fined, I get nobody wants that. This is a hard business. But for the CPG company like the Arizona Iced Tea or Walmart or Costco, not having that stuff on the shelves is a disaster. These are not high margin businesses. You can't afford to have somebody experimenting with your competitor because we couldn't get it to the shelf.
That's for sure. That's for sure. And it's always a fight for that shelf space. Like we were talking about earlier, there's so many options now. It's not just the big boys anymore. There's so many options, and sometimes it's one, sometimes it's two. You find beverages in the produce section. So they have choices. And the last thing you want to do is not service the account and showing up late.
Oh, you're being judged. I guarantee the retailers are looking and saying, who's our best partner? And if you can't get it to the shelves, you aren't the best partner. That's what it comes down to. And I think I say this all the time, but I think it's an important point. Costco, Aldi, Trader Joe's, those have very few SKUs compared to the Walmarts or the Myers or the other places. So when there's fewer SKUs, that means that they're always looking to say, how do we get fewer SKUs? Who can we get rid of so we can bring so-and-so on? So you don't want to be on that bad list.
Definitely not.
So part of your stuff is going to DCs. So you got the inventory, but some of it you said is also some of it's going to those DCs, and you said that goes on intermodal. You do a lot of intermodal?
We do. Mostly the stock transfers are going intermodal. We try not to mess around with the club stores, like you said, because of the fines. So you got to always add on extra days of transit for the intermodal freight. We typically will ship them full truckload. And my job is, I'm like a matchmaker. When a carrier comes on board, if he passes all of our safety stats and makes it past all the hoops that I give them, I try to find, hey, what's a good marriage for you? I'm not just looking at the freight, but I want to see if I have something that is going to your sweet spot. For example, I have a carrier who has drop privileges out of Walmart. I'm going to make that line up because I know you want to go in there. You have no dwell time because you're just dropping the trailer. I know you're going to service the hell out of it. So I try to make those matches with my carriers and the receivers.
The drop trailers is such a revelation. We've always done it, but I think we're doing it more since the ELD mandate because we realize how hard it is to keep the drivers occupied. We're not doing a good job at it. I'm sure you guys are doing better than most, but as an industry, we're not doing well enough with the drivers to get them on the road. Too much time wandering around, picking up and delivering.
You got it. And sitting for too long. And then hours of service are always the fight. And I learned that part of my Wreaths journey. I learned that in driving the truck from New Jersey down to Florida, it's just you're held at the mercy of your previous stop. And God forbid you get so excited when that green light tells you to pass the scale, you don't have to go in. And then all of a sudden you're out of hours. And guess what? The truck stops full. There's nowhere for you to park. What do you do? It's like there's so many challenges for the drivers. I know I went off topic with that, but that's a huge thing for me.
It is a very difficult job. And again, I think the whole industry knows it. and we talk about it, but I don't know how much is happening. There's a new organization, I'm hoping to get them on the podcast soon, called Project 61. And I think it's related to drivers are now dying at an average age of 61. It's not an easy job, but living on the road, I say this all the time. I don't sleep well when I go to a hotel. And they're sleeping in a truck stop, if that, maybe in a Cracker Barrel, wherever they can find a place to park. Not easy. Anyway, there's some other challenges with beverage. Obviously, beverages can leak. So if somebody drops a pallet, somebody knocks a pallet, hits it with a forklift, you have sprung a leak, and now all of a sudden you have sugar water all over, which is sticky. Dirt is going to find it. Hopefully not ants, but it's a big problem. Talk about how you guys deal with all of that, because it's got to be a giant pain.
Of course. That's one of the issues that I talk about, being held at the mercy of your previous stop. Sometimes there's shortages or overages or damages when a pallet arrives. So let's say they unload 20 pallets and 2 of them have some leakers, and they're leaving those 2 pallets on that driver's truck. So now he's out of luck going to his next stop for his pickup because he's got to get disposition on these 2 pallets. We have an OS&D department who has relationships with warehouses across the country, and we try the best we could to get that disposition, get him to a warehouse, get it unloaded as quickly as possible so we don't ruin his week.
So let's just say I'm the driver and I drove down, I got 20 pallets, they unload 20, notice 2 are leaking, they put them back in my truck. I'm not driving back to New Jersey, am I?
No, we try to find something that's close to where the driver is or where the driver's next pickup is.
So you say, good news, Joe, 5 miles down the road, you can drop off at this warehouse. So not all the pallets were leaking, or not all the bottles were leaking. So they will look and say, okay, we discovered there was 40 cases on here. Only 1 was leaking. We took that one off. Did they repack it and then deliver it for you?
Yeah, we send Joe on his way, let him go finish his job, and we deal directly with the warehouse. A lot of times the warehouses will have their own fleet of small amount of trucks, and they'll be able to redeliver it for us, or we'll get an LTL carrier to come in and redeliver it to the facility once it's
So it's got to be rewrapped and relabeled and everything.
Yeah, and all that costs money.
Yes.
All that costs money.
Yeah, so any accidents happen when you're moving and you're moving fast. I can see how it happens, but that is a problem that you get. It happens in a lot of businesses, but with beverages, they also freeze. How do you deal with the freeze?
Oh boy, that's always fun. Like any type of weather issues is always a good time. So for freezing in the winter months, if we're delivering, let's say to Colorado, or something's going into North Dakota and it's going to sit over the weekend, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll put it on a reefer carrier. I'll reach out to my customer and say, hey, I need a pallet cut. It's too heavy. We can't send this on a dry van because we want to protect from freeze. They'll run that temperature, not so high, but just high enough so it doesn't
warm enough,
and get on their way. But you just think about the grand scheme of logistics, and it brings me back to when we had Superstorm Sandy here in New Jersey, and we were shut down as a state for such a long time. And then you have people who are headquartered in Atlanta. They have no clue. They're like, where's my product? We just had a hurricane, or there's a snowstorm, where the headquarters isn't feeling the snowstorms or the deep freezes and all that good stuff. And they're like, why is the product not there yet? They legally can't run. The governor made a state of emergency and we can't get anywhere. And our VP of Ops, he always says, Kristina, just because it stopped snowing, now we got to get the roofs of these trailers, the snow off of it, because you can't go on the road with it. It's not like once the streets are dry, you can just start rolling right away.
Right. I've made these explanations. I'm sure you have too. If you lose one day because of snow or a storm, and somebody says, oh, you just catch up. So tomorrow, so I was supposed to get it on Thursday. Now I'll get it I didn't get it Friday. I'll for sure get it Monday. You're like, no, because I don't have unlimited resources on Monday. I only have the regular resources. We lost a day. And to your point, it takes a week. And it's just like the airlines are the same way. When somebody says, oh yeah, they had a few days off, that could blow you might never get a flight.
Sure thing. What we do here is we'll prioritize. So we'll prioritize the people, of course, that fine are going to get their product first. Or that it'll start trickling down. Maybe the DCs are okay and they can take it a few days late. They're flexible. A lot of times you just pick up the phone and talk to somebody, and it's a person on the other end of the line. They understand what's going on, and sometimes they're a little bit more flexible.
Yep. We talked a little bit about the challenges. I want to talk about you guys really are a supply chain company. So you guys are, again, co-located with Arizona Iced Tea, one of your beverage customers. You have others. And you're also co-located with their bottling company. So you guys are going and getting the raw materials for the production of this?
Yeah, we're bringing cans in from Oliphant, Pennsylvania, sometimes 10, 15 loads a day coming in here to drop off. We're bringing in ingredients.
So you guys are doing all the inbound. So you have to that's a very different business than the outbound.
Sure. Some of them, we don't do all of the inbound. So they may have a contract with a certain supplier and they'll build in their transportation rates with that commodity. So cardboard, we don't bring in, but the cans, yeah, we do the cans all day long, the cans and the lids.
And then when it's ready, after it's been produced, you guys are, again, we already talked about the outbound. And it's interesting because if you were to ask me who moves stuff intermodal, I would never think beverage, because you got to have really high volume. You must have enormous volumes moving out west to get on the intermodal.
Ever since COVID hit, things just haven't been the same. Supplying, we still work with some co-packers in Southern California, but they're not pumping out as much as they used to. And we're feeding them from here, like I said.
Wait, what is a co-packer? I'm not following.
So it's an outside company that will fill and distribute for you. So we have different co-packers located throughout the country. And so they'll produce the product. Maybe it's a certain SKU, a certain piece of packaging that we're not doing here. We have other people do for us.
Yeah, there's not too far from my house. There's a place, and I always would drive by it. I forgot the name now. And I looked it up, and I guess they're a co-packer, but I would call them like a beverage outsourcing or contracting company. And they were making cocktails for Cindy Crawford's husband, has like some sort of cocktail mix company. And Kid Rock had some sort of, I don't know, beer or something that was out there. And I was like, oh, okay. And it's funny because it's a nondescript building. And then when you drive by, you're like, no one ever thinks there's anything going on there, but that they're no doubt a co-packer. It's an interesting biz. I want to summarize what we talked about. Then I want to get your final thoughts on this topic. So again, I'm talking to my friend, Kristina, and we're talking about delivering the drinks, streamlining the beverage supply chain. Before we even get into finalizing this, you guys also work with Coke and Pepsi and other beverages companies?
Yeah. We've always found a niche in the startup beverage companies, and we help them where
they need exactly what you have.
Yeah, they need exactly what we have, and we've got the resume to back it up, and we build them up, and then they get eaten up by the big boys, or sometimes they stay on their own and they stay with us. But yeah,
it's one of those businesses when with a beer company, a small. I think we were talking about this Poppy, Poppi. They just got acquired by Pepsi or Coke or someone. I think it was some sort of organic, good for you soft drink. And what's so compelling is that company becomes worth so much more when it has worldwide distribution, courtesy of a Coke or a Pepsi or an Arizona Iced Tea that already has the infrastructure. And if you say, oh, by the way, we'll get you on the shelf everywhere and we'll get the distribution, we already got it. So it's funny, the beer companies, I live in Michigan, we have all these craft beer companies, especially in Western Michigan, like Founders. And a lot of them are like, they disparage the big boys for a long time. And then as they get bigger and bigger, you go, you know what's going to happen here, fellas.
That's it. Secret's out.
Yep. You're going to sell. So you better start being nice to the big boys. And I think they all probably have the same concern is let's make sure we can keep our brand and our quality, even though we did sell to someone. But I think the big brands have a vested interest in that too. So anyway, I want to summarize, then what your final thoughts on the topic. So I'm talking to my friend Kristina Bernarducci, and we're talking about delivering the drinks, streamlining beverage transportation. So you guys are embedded. You're co-located with Arizona Iced Tea over there in New Jersey. You're also with their bottling company, and you're doing everything for them. You're doing the inbound, which is challenging all by itself. Because anytime you got to manage inbound transportation means you could close down the production.
Oh, absolutely.
And you get shot for that. And so you got to manage the inbound, but also you're managing a very difficult outbound. Some of it's going to the DCs, some's going intermodal to the DCs, but you're also supporting a whole bunch of big box stores, the Walmarts, the Costcos, those kind of businesses. And you're delivering something that can leak, something that can get damaged fairly easily, and it can freeze. So lots of bad things can happen, and you guys are responsible for all of it. So very demanding business. You guys have been doing it for a long time. Obviously have a good handle on it. Anyway, put a big old bow on this one, Kristina.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is making the correct matches. I explained it earlier, and it's not just the freight that I'm thinking about, but I'm thinking about who's going to haul that for me. It's really easy for me to say my fleet can handle everything, but they're sticking to a nice little radius of PA in New Jersey. So finding the right connections, finding where their sweet spots are, where they have drop privileges at. If you find something that it minimizes the dwell time or minimizes the deadhead to their next pickup, they're going to service the hell out of it. So that's basically what I do, making those connections.
I think an even a bigger picture is you need the right partner, the right transportation logistics partner, because you guys know this business. You've been doing it for a minute. And I always say, you don't want your 3PL or your trucking company or your transportation company learning on your dime. If you need to do beverage, you need to talk to a company like Bettaway that says, we do this. That's what we've been doing for a long time. We're doing it for your competitors, so let us do it for you. Before we hit the record button, we were joking about this. Not so long ago in this business, people would just say, oh, yeah, we specialize in everything. You're like, that's not what a specialization is. You don't specialize in everything. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about Wreaths Across America one more time. Tell us what the mission is for Wreaths Across America and how you guys are involved with it.
Sure. So the mission is it's usually the second week in December, making sure that every veteran has a wreath on their grave. And so we want to make sure that they're remembered, that we're teaching the next generation of the sacrifices that they took for us. And it is the only way to make this work is by the generosity of trucking companies, brokers, anybody in the industry, just volunteering their time, getting in touch with Courtney George, of course, getting on that roster. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to participate in. So even if you don't have a truck, go to one of the local cemeteries and say, hey, I'm going to volunteer to help put these wreaths down. And even most importantly, Courtney said to me, the biggest problem is getting them cleaned up in January. So you can help in many ways, or you could just sponsor a wreath. I think it's $17 a wreath. You could sponsor a wreath and it could be put on someone's grave on your behalf.
Yep. And from what I've talked to some people about Wreaths Across America in the past, a lot of drivers are very interested in doing this. Some will volunteer their own time, owner operators. Other companies are rewarding drivers by saying, hey, you can be on this mission, which is one that's near and dear to many of us. I think anybody who has a veteran in their life, or even somebody who just says, I don't have a veteran in my life, but I appreciate the sacrifices they made. And I know they have lots of other things. I think they have a traveling museum that Wreaths has, and they have a internet radio station called Wreaths Across America. Again, they carry my podcast and some others, logistics podcasts, and a lot of content for veterans and Gold Star families. So great cause. And again, you don't join for the business opportunities, but I know lots of business opportunities could come from it. So if you have to justify it beyond just doing the right thing, there's this is how you do well by doing good.
I promote 100%. If you've got the opportunity, you got to get on board. It's a wonderful mission.
Thank you so much for taking the time, Kristina. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I really enjoyed learning about the beverage supply chain, a little more complex than I ever think it's going to be.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yep. And thank all of you for listening. But before I forget, I won't say that just yet. I will make sure I put a link to all the Wreaths Across America stuff, and I will also make sure that I put a link to your LinkedIn profile, a link to your website, and any of the links you and your marketing team give me. We'll put those in the show notes. And so anyone wants to get involved with Bettaway or reach out and talk to Wreaths, highly recommend both. Thank you so much for taking the time, Kristina.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Yep. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.